And Kiran is a co-founder of Chlorophyll, as many of us know, and he's a TED and TEDx speaker. He has published 3 books of fiction, Halfway Up the Mountain, Two Pronouns and a Verb, and Black River Run. And he's read from them at many places and festivals. He has a species of spider named after him, and that I will let him say because it is so easily pronounceable. Well, I will say it as Thelpticopis kirankalapi. So, Kiran, I will leave you with a spidey web of conversations for all of us to watch from now on.
Thank you, Vasanthi. So here we are in a rather interesting session. I think the festival has been about kindness, and I thought, as usual, as a creative person, if I can put a twist on it. So we all know about that kindness begins with being kind to yourself. That is the starting point of kindness. But what I thought would be interesting, if I could find 2 or 3 youngsters who have inspired me, who have been kind to others. So, and the journey that I am going to request them to take is, while they have been kind to others, the questions I'm going to pose are hopefully going to make them introspect and take a journey inward. So you can see the twist that we are trying to get here. And I'm going to go in alphabetical order because I don't want to be blamed of nepotism. All 3 of them are equally inspiring. So first is Niveda. Niveda is on screen now, I don't know, but let me introduce Niveda to you. Niveda is the founder of TrashCon. It's the world's first completely automated mixed municipal waste segregation technology. Her invention has been recognized around the world and by organizations like World Bank, UNDP. And because of this, Niveda has gone and spoken all over the world in conferences of sustainability. Next is Sonal, who started Protsahan in 2010. She works with young girls who have suffered some kind of trauma, and she invented a principle, a method called HEART, which is healing with art. And now she has actual data to prove that over 1,000, close to 1,000 girls have actually been healed through this process of hers. Again, like Niveda, she has won over 10 awards, 15 awards, and has spoken at multiple conferences all over the world. Yamuna, like the river, she flows unhindered, as you will see when we hear her story. So Yamuna started Cap Dost in 2016. To date, she has impacted 1 lakh community members, 2 lakh gig workforce, filed TDS worth 10 crores. As you can see, I had to write all of this down because there's so much to talk about. And taxes worth 3 crores have been paid. She again has won multiple awards, including the UN and Niti Aayog awards, and has spoken in Amsterdam and Paris. So here are the 3 young stars in my life. They have inspired me with their kindness. Niveda is kind to the earth. Yamuna is kind to cab drivers and rickshaw drivers and truck drivers. And Sonal has been kind to all the young girls who have suffered in life. They have had various traumas. So I'm going to start asking the same question to each one of you. So Niveda, first you, then Sonal, and then Yamuna. And then just to make Yamuna feel better, the next series of questions, I'll start with Yamuna. So then we can do the round first. So Niveda, the question which we touched upon it when we had and Vasanthi, I'm going to request you to keep time because I'm not going to focus on the time. When we have 15 minutes left, I want the audience to be able to ask questions. I think that's far more valuable as listening to us. So Niveda, the first question that we had decided, when we say we are kind to somebody else, you are inspired by what is happening in India. There is a lot of garbage as a problem, and that we are destroying the very earth that we have inherited. And therefore, you did this gesture. By the way, all 3 of them worked, gave up interesting careers and worked all the time without taking any salaries. These are really charged up young ladies. So Niveda, the question I had was, this sense of kindness that we have in your case towards the earth, you have also been able to change dramatically the lives of many villages, right? The question I'm asking is, does this kindness at some point get so inextricably linked to your own identity that the kindness then remains as a distant starting point and the identity takes over, that this is what I have done? In that bargain, slowly we start, if people do not agree with our viewpoint, agree with our philosophy, the identity starts taking umbrage. It starts getting angry, saying, how can they? Because I've done so much of this. And therefore, the journey changes from one of kindness to one of preserving your own identity. Now, is this all illusion or is this real? Does this happen? I wanted the audience to know from people who have been really kind rather than have a theoretical discussion, and which is why we invented this format. So Niveda, all yours for the next 3 or 4 minutes.
Yes, I think that is the trickiest question, and that was put forth in the beginning itself. Should have expected this, Mr. Kiran. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Real pleasure to be here. I began with the concept of coming up that should solve the biggest problem, biggest menace that mankind is currently facing, which, I fear that one day we will have flying cars. And when we look down, we will have mountains of waste. That is something that is going to be real very soon, because most of our cities
Yes.
are already very close to that. And we were coming up with a technological intervention to solve it once and for all, and to alleviate the lives of waste pickers, more less than manual scavengers. Their life is nothing less. Literally, when I've worked with them and I know that particular part, and I wanted to channelize them to dignified employment. So these are the two major ideas that was, I've been living, breathing, dreaming, sleeping this for the past 4 years now. And I can totally understand what you're saying, because when I started out, it was more of, whenever I used to see the landfills, which are huge mountains of waste, I'm sure
Yeah.
our own cities, it really used to pain me that, when Mother Earth, and what we are giving her is a burden that she did not ask for. And it
Beautiful.
became somehow my responsibility. I took it upon myself, and of course my team then started sharing it, that we should solve this problem. So when that happens, in some point of time, you're very right, it becomes a sort of an identity, because it becomes what you are. You are the one who is trying to solve the problem. You are doing it the best way possible, and everybody else is wrong, because because you're putting in your 100%. And there were people who were having different schools of thought. There were people who were telling that technology may not be the only solution, there could be something else. There were other kinds of technology that was coming in. So this took a long time for me to understand that one solution cannot solve a problem this huge.
Beautiful.
And it took me some time to understand that if I really, really relate to the problem, I cannot be doing it alone. I should rather join hands with everyone who is trying to solve the problem. So
Very
right
nice.
now, at the current phase that I am, what you are saying is something that I've passed through. I realized it. I'm glad I realized it. But where I am is I understand that every single person who is working in this field of waste management, be it activism, be it technology, be it even politicians who are trying to do something good, each one of them have at least thought beyond their 9 to 5 job. Each one regular mundane work. So I have respect. I am now, and I believe that there is a requirement of 1,000 such technologies, 1,000
Nivedas.
such ideas to solve the problem. Yes. So
Beautiful.
that's where I am.
Yeah. So Sonal, you had a different angle. You were coming to it from age. So when at age 20, I more or less ran away from home and became a school teacher. And you said, yes, age has something to do with this madness. And at that, when we are young, we are immortal. And therefore you you leap into this without thinking about the future. But you said that, but with time, something else happens. So what is happening? This identity, this kindness towards these young girls whom you are almost like mothering them. I can see the tremendous affection that you have for all those kids. Did you wrestle at all with this business of kindness being left behind and identity taken over, or no?
I think, Kiran sir, thanks for having me here. I think somewhere along the wrestling happens every day. It's not, Niveda said that in 4 years she's learned. I think it's my 11th year of doing the same work, and I'm still wrestling every day. Because I think at 24, when I started, I was angrier about the. So I have a feeling that if we have to be kind, we really need to understand what injustice is. We cannot say that, hey, politics is not my thing. I think it's a very privileged sense of view. If we have to understand kindness, we have to come out of the spiritual arrogance of we knowing or not knowing things. We need to understand what injustices are, what intersectionalities would mean for a child who doesn't even get 2 meals a day. And just this morning, we had a rescue call for someone who was being beaten black and blue by her father, and hadn't eaten for 3 days. The kid had not eaten for 3 days. So a lot of that wrestling in my own mind happens because in these 11 years, my anger might have maybe notched down 20%, which has come with age. So I let my hara and all the chakras alignment and all of that, right? Which sounds funny after a point, but I think I let my hara take on the burden and not my soul. I might sound very corny. I think I do realize on a platform like this, but I think a lot of self-care and the importance of self-care and not beating myself up against the wall if I don't want to indulge in this work for 2 hours a day or 5 hours a day. And I want to just switch off my phone and read and pass on the baton to other members of the team. Because the wrestling is real in my own mind. Because the trauma that the child goes through for the first 5-6 years, I would absorb all of that trauma in my heart. And maybe it was great in the beginning because it helped me establish the entire piece, the organization, get more members. I mean, one of the reasons, like you were saying, not working with salary for 10 years and in 11th year, understanding, no, salary makes you sustainable and then you will not be juggling 3 other jobs. I think all of that will come with time. But
Right.
I might have become less angry, but my sense or understanding of injustices and justice has only increased. But the wrestling happens every day.
So, Yamuna, you went late at night, talked to those drivers who themselves were very surprised that a young girl is coming here and talking to them, not understanding what your mission was, but you stuck to it day after day, night after night. And then you met your fellow partner, your fellow traveler. So what happened? How this kindness towards the rickshaw drivers and the truck drivers and the cab drivers, at some point, did it become your own identity? Did you start looking at others who didn't believe in you as people who are disbelievers, or you were also kind to them? So can you talk to us a little bit about, because all three of you are such distinctly kind people who are kind to totally unconnected things. So somebody's kind to young girls, somebody's kind to cab drivers, somebody kind to the earth. So Yamuna, tell us about your journey.
So I'll tell Kiran, when we walk out of airport, we don't have patience to even wait for 1 or 2 minutes to get into the cab. You're yelling at a cab guy, but for that one trip, that cab driver would have waited 8 hours, 12 hours, might have not gone home for 3 days, just slept in the car in all
nice.
possible positions, right? When I first met one of the taxi drivers on the footpath, drinking over a cup of coffee, he said, "We are neither valued nor served." And one of the most funniest conversation is then people are not even giving girls for us for marriage also. Just imagine the level. One of the things that I just stuck was the what is that I can help, what is that we can look at. We cannot do with every communities. At least if I can put my efforts to one community and accelerate it, that was the whole thought. The only line of direction is kindness is a driver walking into a corporate bank where where he's not treated right. He's like, you see his clothes and you don't value him, or you go to a chartered accountant, he's not even given 10 minutes to even explain what it is, right? This lack of dignity of labor that directly proportionately relates to the kind concern that we had. This is how we started. For 6 months, I met more than 3,000 taxi drivers on the ground. I used to run around like 4 a.m. in the morning. Somebody calls and says, "Oh, there are a group of 30 drivers here near this mall. Do you want to come?" At like midnight, 12. Oh, I was like excited. I can talk to a few more people. And the whole idea was, how can we help? The simple line that actually helped us start Cabdos was, if I buy a cab with the income proof, I'll repay my loan in 4 years. If I go to loan sharks, I'll repay in 8 years. It's 4
My
years
God.
living, living pathetically. So how can I create a stand of living for these, absolutely underserved communities? And for example, one rainy day, you want to eat that nice pakoda, or you want to eat something nice, burgers, you order on Swiggy, Zomato, or all other places. We want to eat at our comfort, and you need to remember that delivery partner is drenching all over in rain and bringing that for you. My question is, he may get that 25 rupees extra with that one trip. What is the odd that he may fall, that one accident entire family can be put behind? Over years, anyone I see now, initially when I used to see a cab going away, I was like, oh my God, someone whom I want to meet is running away. So just when I step out of house, when I see a flower vendor who's putting up on the street where there's no hygiene even in this corona, to somewhere you meet a delivery partner or auto driver who's not had his meal on time, I personally feel as individuals we are not having sensible conversations, and that can drill down to kindness. So that's the whole thing. And to add a point, identity, people are thinking probably dating a taxi driver at some point. But that obsession of to do something is beautiful. But at the same time, how can you demarcate? I've always taken my team. Even if I'm speaking to you here, there are 50 people who've been on the ground with me for last years. And what made more strong is, can we bring the team who can actually understand this piece? Most of our team members are like neither auto drivers, children, who belong to that, what we are actually trying to teach. I personally thoroughly enjoying this journey, and now looking at the street vendors, looking at different pieces, and now we merged with Dwara Money from Cabdos, and the financial umbrella for the larger piece. But I personally feel kindness is not just within, but as soon as you step out, when you see the person, how empathetic and kind can we be for everyone out there?
So, Yamuna, you have actually allowed me to segue into the second question. And what I always felt, my wife has been part of several NGOs, and that is where the first question came from, because I could see a lot of ego problems that founders of NGOs go through. So that is how the first question came. The second question is arising out of what you just said, that you started by feeling deeply about a cab driver who hasn't slept well, who has waited for 8 hours. But what happens is, if you're a kind person, you will not stop at one segment, at one single type of person, or at one community, right? A kind person will be kind to everybody, right? You have to be kind even to your husband, or to your wife, or to your children. So my question is that kindness does not have a specific object. We can't be just kind to the office boy who works in my office. I also have to be kind to the CEO. Correct? We can't say that he is more privileged, therefore I can't be kind to him. Now, when you do that, does the attention from one, I know what Sonal went through during the COVID period. So while her focus is on helping adolescent girls, you can't help the adolescent girl if the adolescent girl's family is not helped, because they actually have no food to eat, right? So Niveda has gone and said, I can do this for the municipality, but then she looks at a village which is buried under garbage, which is coming from Bangalore. So what happens then? What is this second twist? So I want to be kind, and I suddenly realize that I've been kind to cab drivers or rickshaw drivers. But then I realize there is somebody else who needs kindness, and there is somebody else who needs kindness. What happens to you?
So, to start to have a focus on how this kindness can be demonstrated to something valuable, something purposeful, something impactful, right? Until we touched around 25,000 taxi drivers, we did career counseling for drivers' children. We did oral cancer screening for drivers. We did eye screening and eyeglasses distribution. And we did financial literacy session as simple as, do you know net banking? Kind of different levels, to be empathetic, to understand. But when the team was growing, and also we believe this is something scalable, it's so much big, us, sitting at the standpoint with a kind, scalable thing, it needs to be with profit with purpose, or else you cannot scale it. I can just sit back and say only do with one community. We do have a very minor margins to be able to scale, and backed by someone like Dwara, who've gone all out in the last 13 years. Now the way we are looking at is, there are 10 million gig workforce, like the auto drivers, lorry drivers, truck drivers, the delivery partners. Even during COVID, we were getting the groceries, at home, with the utmost care. But were we even thinking how many people were COVID positive? From that, how many of their communities were COVID positive, right?
Right.
So there's a larger community, but again, with the time constraint, with the one thing that we need to be cautious of is our resources with us is limited. It's not unlimited, but the capability to seek support from outside is unlimited.
Okay, beautiful.
I personally believe, there's nothing wrong in asking for the value and mission that you believe. Max to max, you may get no. That's okay. So many no's. So we work with the union associations, leaders, and we get cards from their families for their housewarming or some birthday.
Beautiful.
We get some drivers who grow in their fields. They come and they just drop near our office some vegetables and fruits.
Wow.
So that sort of unconditional thing is in this beautiful underserved. They are more deserved communities, if I have to put it across. And we are also looking at probably not just aggregators. I think this is a PPP model, public-private partnership model. Even the organizations that work with this contract gig workforce, tech enabled, they should also kind enough to think that as an ethos.
So Yamuna, I just wanted to bring in the other. So if I was to summarize, you are saying, yes, there is a temptation to be kind to other segments also, but I need to make sure that I'm really know the limits of my resources and my capabilities, and then expand according to that, right?
Yes.
And you must remember that there is one person whose financial literacy you haven't cured, which is me. Someday you'll make sure that I can file my taxes also. Yeah. Niveda, can we go to you? So I will go to Sonal also. So this question about scalability versus, how thin can you stretch yourself? What is going to happen? So as you said, you dreamt of a place where there are flying cars and mountains of garbage. It really sounds like a gigantic problem. We know that I think India does a lot of recycling for the world, but that's not enough. Do you also have a viewpoint about how you can be kind to more things without losing focus?
Yeah. So I think, Mr. Kiran, kindness to us at TrashCon is a culture. Kindness is something that we do at every point of time. When you're going for a meeting to a babu in a government office, he takes 6 hours and you start blaming everybody, including his mother, father, uncle, aunt. No, have that empathy to understand that
Beautiful.
maybe that person is actually busy. It starts from there. It starts from every bit of,
Beautiful.
if somebody is, that is how it is. And at TrashCon, I think the biggest achievement, or apart from everything.
Sorry, have we lost her? Or it's only my...
No,
Hi, am I audible?
Niveda, we can hear you, but you're frozen. Now we can, yeah.
Okay, great. So I was saying that at every point of time, we see how we can contribute. For example, we saw a homeless house 500 meters away from our office. And without anybody saying anything, our team just went in and saw that the woman has recently lost her husband and she has 4 little kids. And they don't have a place to sleep. And this was during December. And immediately we made a bed out of our recycled material and gave it to them. No questions
Beautiful.
asked. Nobody asked, and we did it. I think so. This is something that we're doing on an everyday basis. We do not consider it as an achievement, a destination to go to. It's just a way of life for all of us at TrashCon. So
That's
there is
beautiful.
a clear understanding. And at TrashCon, yes, of course, we have a goal, we have an objective. We are trying to solve the problem of waste. But I don't think when you're solving a problem, it's just one problem. You're trying to solve 100 other problems. It can't be that one problem is independently existing without other problems. So I think,
Correct.
yes, so that's what I feel. I don't think.
And while solving those problems, if you have to be kind to others, you will have to be kind to all, right? Because they have their own problems, obviously.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Sonal, so we have often conversed about this, about scale versus, quality. Where are you now on this? What happened during COVID and all of that? When instead of just focus on young girls, then you have to look at families. How have you resolved that duality in your mind?
Kiran sir, it's so funny that for all these last 9-10 years, I kept questioning my own self with the leadership team that, is scale more important or deep immersive work and empathy more important? Because we will not do one training session and then go back, right? It's like literally when we're talking about something as deep as healing, it's not a 5-day seminar, right? It takes something which goes beyond. It takes insides of you, when you're trying to heal. If I didn't have quantitative data, I would still not be in a position to say, hey, the kid is on a journey to heal. But I think in all of this madness, when we were still questioning, should we not scale? What will it, would we have to raise more funds? How will that journey look like when we are dictated by a CSR or by a donor to do it a certain way, and we have a certain way of doing things? I think COVID didn't give us a choice. It just pushed us into the most organic form of scaling, which now when I kind of sit back and I think, it surprises me. Because we used to work in we had 2 centers, about 500, 600 girls coming to those 2 centers. And when COVID struck, we saw some of those kids, I think like Yamuna and Niveda mentioned, some of these children are, children of manual scavengers. Some of these children have gone through insane amount of, incest or abuse or, it's physical violence. It's crazy, right? At every which way we think about it. And during COVID, the financial stresses, the job losses, the livelihoods going for a toss, all of this kind of just amplified what they were already going through as trauma. And, the first thing we figured, so that we stopped our centers, we closed our centers and the community work that we did. And we asked ourselves, hey, do we need to, we are not into these, the normal classes have stopped, the normal hand holding, academic support and all these meditations and play and library sessions, all of that has stopped. Then, what do we do? And I was still questioning, what is Protsahan's role? When one of my center coordinators calls me and she says, ma'am, we cannot sit silent. And I said, but we don't have the money. Where will we get the money from to feed people, right? She said, let's just start. And like I think Niveda mentioned very beautifully that, if it becomes a culture, then even you as a founder have no running away from it, because your team will stand up for that culture even before it hits you consciously, right? And we started with 3 slums, I remember, which reached out to lonesome truck drivers who were stuck because the borders were sealed because of COVID and all of that. And we partnered with the Swiggies and Zomatos and all of that of the world to provide cooked meals, to provide. And then again, the kindness bit, if we see now that you're questioning, and I'm just thinking aloud with myself, it was about, why should they have the same khichdi every day that the government or the Swiggies and all of that are giving? With the best of intentions, yes, but why should they have the same khichdi? So we got back to Swiggies and Zomatos of the world and say, hey, today if you're giving the yellow dal and the rice khichdi, tomorrow we want aloo gobi and a chapati and something else, and then the third day we want rajma rice, the fourth day. And they were like, dude, we are giving food, right? Just be happy with the fact that we're giving food. I said, no, would you eat the same food, the same pattern of food twice
Absolutely.
a day for like 60 days? It's crazy. It's impossible. And we fought and fought, and they got angry, but then they finally, agreed to what we had to say. So we got them 7 days, 2 different meals in a different day, and how we managed the
Fantastic.
logistics, that's completely different. But the entire idea coming from also the fact that, okay, everybody keeps talking about, or even we as Protsahan, kept talking about the girls from the most difficult, traumatized backgrounds. They have to thrive. But all of the work will go for a toss if the kids don't survive first. And the
Correct.
survival for them, for their families, they didn't want education for those 3 months. Like, what will you do of big books and all of that if you don't have basic food to eat? So we had, and we fed more than 4 lakh people. Now, again, it's funny when I think, because it was so organic, that we wrote to a ENY, or we wrote to Azim Premji or a Tech Mahindra, and all of them, just came up all guns blazing and said, hey, we will support you. Because they didn't, they had seen our work for the last 10 years as if waiting to come on a threshold where one phone call, no sales pitches, people are dying, we want to feed them, are you on board? And they're like, hey, yes. And I think it does for the first 10, 15, 5 years. I don't know what threshold points could be for everybody or anybody doing whatever kind of work, but I think there is always a threshold. And at that funny little level, before you know, everybody in the community will come, and you will not just be a one Sonal or a one Yamuna or one Niveda. It'll just be 10,000 amplified before you know it.
Beautiful. I think one of the best, most touching things I've heard Sonal tell me is that, and when I think about it as a brand, not that it's critical, that the girls who have got healed want to go out and set up other Protsahans. So somebody wants to take Protsahan to Jharkhand, or wants to take Protsahan to, and that's incredible. That is the success of the work in such a tangible manner that most organizations or most brands would die to have this kind of growth coming from their own people. Vasanthi, we are going to stop here and let the audience ask questions.
Yes, the way each of these stories of these 3 women who have in a way shown, it's almost a case study of how you can make kindness your calling, quite literally.
Yes.
And you brought it out really well, Kiran. And there are a couple of audience questions, as you mentioned, and I would like to, yes. Now, one of the questions, how do you incorporate, and this is for you, Kiran, while we have heard the 3 women, how do you incorporate your philosophies of life into the branding world?
So one of the things that has happened, especially after 2003 in the rest of the world and 2011 in India, is the inexorable rise of social media. And what social media has done is made organizations naked. Right? You can't hide any longer. So the only thing that we tell organizations when they are talking about their brands is that, look, you can't hide any longer. So the best thing is to find out what your brand really stands for and do only that. There was a time when we talked about words like product puffery, that you can talk about your products in a puffed up manner, and if you repeated it enough number of times, people would buy it. It doesn't work any longer. You talk about, so one of the famous examples that does the rounds when you're talking about branding is, till social media happened, Unilever, Hindustan Lever had a factory in the south, which was the mercury poisoning was happening. And for 14 years, nothing happened until one young girl called Sophia made a video, and the video went viral. Now,
yeah,
that is the power of the social media. Of course, there are negative things, of course. But the one thing that is happening is that the chances of any brand or any organization being caught out telling lies has increased dramatically. And therefore, what work we don't do advertising. We are talking more about upstream. What does your brand stand for? And that includes doing this kind of work for NGOs, mind you. So NGOs like Sonal faces those, duvidhas that she has, scale versus immersion. The same thing has to be done for commercial brands. What really would you stand for? And do you, like Yamuna talked about and Nivedha talked about, her culture? So when you talk about this, that my brand stands for this, do you do that to your own employees in the first place? Right? My favorite joke is a board which says, we trust our employees. And this board is above a water cooler where the steel glass is chained to the water cooler. Obviously, this is not an organization that trusts anybody, right?
Yeah.
Or we treat everyone equally, but there is one men's room which smells of ammonia, one is slightly cleaner and one is closed. The one which is closed, the key is with the managing director's secretary. Yeah. This is not an organization that treats its people as equals, right? So these anomalies about what you say and what you do, these anomalies are getting caught out much faster because of social media. When you go on social, if any youngster today wants to join a company, what she's going to do first is go to Glassdoor. Because on Glassdoor, she'll hear other youngsters who are now working there talk about how they are being treated, rather than what the ad from the company says. So when I'm not a seeker of truth or any such thing. I'm just a simple man who had something very interesting happening to him because of J. Krishnamurti. But in my profession, what we started out with in 1983 when I started, where you believed that you could tell a lie and get away with it, that is no longer true. It doesn't work.
You mentioned J. Krishnamurti, and that's something that the audience had asked before. Someone who has said, please tell us what made you go teach under J. Krishnamurti. What was that life like, and how did it change you?
So there are, let's say there are two types of people. There is one type who gets into questioning the meaning of life or anything else because of an event where it's very traumatic and you lose somebody very close to you, or you lose your job, or you have illness, and that is the trigger that starts this inquiry about what is the meaning of life. And there's another for whom that's organic. Now, I was fortunate enough, I had this organic thing right since I was an adolescent, and I read everything that I could lay my hands on in terms of philosophy, the Upanishads. I read Immanuel Kant, I read Wittgenstein, Sartre, and understood nothing, because at 16 you can't understand any of these things. It's very difficult. Until I read J. Krishnamurti. And that was so clear that it probably changed the structure. I don't know what happened, but it made my life extremely simple. And my poor dad, like all middle class, upper middle class, he wanted me to be a doctor. And I still remember that night, father and son standing there. And he said, aren't you going to become a doctor? And I said, no, I'm going to become a teacher. I have to help this man because this man has helped me. So the day I finished my exams, practical exams, I was in a train. I didn't know where the school was. I didn't know what I was going to teach. I was on the train to Banaras. to teach in that school. And there I got exposed to teachers. I got exposed to him because he had this calendar where he traveled Banaras, Delhi, Rishi Valley, London, all of that. Because he walked so fast, I got to walk with him because older people couldn't keep pace. So I was sent for walks, and then we had chats during breakfast, during lunch, during dinner. So and whatever I knew in those 4 years, I taught all the 300 students. I taught them calligraphy and swimming and judo and gymnastics and whatever I knew. So that was 4 years of heaven. And then I had to come back because both my parents were ill.
I think all that you have shared with us now, from that journey, and what Yamuna, Niveda, and Sonal have shared from theirs, has definitely moved the discourse forward in today's kindness conversation. It's been absolute, what we call in South India, trupti, the satisfaction.
Yes, for that we have to thank all these youngsters. Yeah, because their stories are...
On behalf of the organizers, on behalf of the audience who's watching us from across the world, thank all of you for really being here, and Kiran for leading this conversation. Thank you, and namaskara, dhanyabad once again.
Thank you.